All right, welcome to the daily market recap for Wednesday, July 23rd. In this video, like all daily recaps, we'll take a look at the action of the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with some long and short setups going into tomorrow. Jumping right into it, QQQ, great action today. Yesterday we had a little gap up, morning weakness, bounce at the 10-day, and today pretty similar action. Bounced again at the 10-day moving average, closed at the high of the day, back over the 5-day moving average, up 0.46%. Nice rally into the close there. The S&P 500 even stronger with a gap up and close at new all-time highs, up 0.8%. Great action overall. Really hasn't even tested the 20-day EMA since June 23rd, so quite the move since then. The growth stocks of the Russell 2000, that's IWO. We talked about this yesterday where I was a bit concerned that we had such a quick secondary test of the 20-day moving average, and that I would be less concerned if we get some strong action and follow through. And that's exactly what we got today. Gap up, opened on the low, closed on the high, new closing high, I believe. Yeah, this entire rally. So overall, great action. Really, like you can't find much wrong in this market. Every dip is getting bought. We are starting to run a little bit hot, but I mean, overall, just incredible action. ARKK, higher highs, higher lows, close at high of the day and back over the 5-day moving average, just below previous closing highs for the year. Just a monster move by ARK. I really like a lot of the stocks that they hold in their ETF now, which is surprising because it's been 2 or 3 years since I felt that way. But you can see there's no arguing with it. Every time we pull into the 20-day moving average, we get supported. And now we're really starting to accelerate here, which makes me think we're a little bit long in the move. But we'll see. Whenever you start getting supported by a shorter term key moving average, you can sense that things are accelerating to the upside, and acceleration only lasts for so long. When it makes its final move, you tend to get really, really good action to the upside, but eventually it does come back down to earth. And finally, we're using IBIT for Bitcoin. Overall, just solid action, continues to consolidate above the rising 10-day EMA after the nice base little cup handle breakout. Overall, doing nothing wrong, really consolidating well, and will be some of our focus stocks going into tomorrow. Next, we'll take a look at the liquid leaders. First off, GEV, they reported earnings before the market opened today and absolutely crushed it, ending the day up 14.7%. Just a monster stock and really a chart to study since the IPO. Has given multiple great opportunities to enter and ride with the trend. One of the model book stocks of this bull market cycle. RKLB up another 4.8%. This was off of yesterday's shakeout of the 10-day moving average and support gap. Literally pennies through the support gap and then immediately respond to that area. That's why we draw the support gaps. That's why we try to get actionable right around those areas because it gives you the best risk reward for your entries. And you see it play out when you have a strong market. Rocket Lab, we can measure this. From that support gap low, we're already up 10%. So you're risking what, 1 or 2% for a 10% move? You don't need to be right very often for that to pay out. FUTU, new 52-week highs and new closing highs, continues to be one of the leaders in China, and that theme is still working its way out of the base right now, so that's good to see. SoFi, great action today, higher highs, higher lows, closed back through the 5 and the 10-day moving average after yesterday's gap down and shakeout. We closed above yesterday's gap down, so we wiped that away. And like I say, if you get a gap down, the earlier that you close it, the better. And we closed it 1 day later. That shows you how strong the market is. NVIDIA still has a gap down, but gapped up today. Touched off the 10-day moving average and then closed over the 5. Just kind of an inside candle on low volume, up 2.3% today. Royal Caribbean, another new all-time high with a gap up. Kind of a lower close in the range, but still up 1%. Robinhood, extremely tight action on the 10-day moving average. I've said this before. I think this is the liquid leader in the market. When you get spots to add to liquid leaders, you should probably take those. And then when you get feedback that we need more time to pull back, getting booted out of the liquid leader versus getting booted out of a B plus kind of B minus type name is way different. I would rather try to trade a liquid leader multiple times and take paper cuts versus try to make something out of a stock that's not quite right. Roblox second gap down, but we did have a really nice reversal today. At one point, it was down about like 5% or so, rallied back through the 10-day moving average and closed nice and high in the daily range. But like we pointed out, we saw this acceleration after a little consolidation. And once you get that acceleration move, you tend to invite volatility into the stock. And that's what we had basically the last 6 days was just a lot of volatility. So we'll see if we could tighten up from there. And then Coinbase, I think this is acting phenomenal. Undercut and rally of the support gap today under the 10-day moving average and then close back up in that range. As Bitcoin's flagging out, Coinbase is pulling back into key moving averages and finding support. Overall, I think that's a really good sign. Taking a look at some industry ETFs, ROBO, the robotic ETF, continues its breakout of this multi-year base. If we zoom out on the daily, you can see just how long that we've been basing for. Now we're coming out of that on a lot of volume. Doesn't seem too bearish to me. ITA, really good response after yesterday's shakeout. This looked like it was a structure break because we closed under the 10-day moving average. But just like everything else in this market, the dip got bought at the 20-day EMA and the support gap. Then we followed through the upside with a gap up, opened on the low, closed right near the high, and a new all-time closing high for the defense ETF. Nuclear theme, good gap up after the shakeout to the 10-day moving average, new closing high. Oops, wrong button. KWEB, the Chinese internet ETF, continues to climb up the right side of the base after this really tight price action. On the weekly chart, you can see we've been basing out for 2.5 years. Now we're starting to move up the right side. I've been saying this for weeks now. This is a theme that I'm focused on, I'm positioned well in, and I'm trying to really ride this new trend. Biotech XBI, potentially actionable tomorrow. Good pullback into the 20-day moving average, consolidated for 2 days. Then today we got a gap up, rallied right back into the resistance gap and into this pivot. If we can clear this area tomorrow, XBI and biotechs can get explosive. We're starting to see some biotechs within the group really starting to act well. And then, unfortunately, TAN Solar ETF gap down today, down 2.25% on ENPH's earnings. I still think that this is a theme to focus on in the second half of this year. Even with today's gap down, we just touched off the 5-day moving average and support gap on less volume than yesterday. So overall, the theme I think is fine. ENPH is just like an incredibly weak stock. Not it used to be the leader in the space along with First Solar, but not acting that way. Very high volume, basically no bid today until like the very end of the day. Just ugly action overall. But some of the solar stocks, NXT really caught my eye. Great relative strength today. This is the stock that I own, up 1.37% back through the key moving averages after a little shakeout. And I do own SEDG, which was down 8.8% today off the 5-day moving average, a little bounce, but very, very light volume on today's action, which price comes first, volume comes second. I get that. But a close on low volume over the 5-day EMA, not very bearish to me, even though we had one of the main stocks within that group have a really, really rough day. Okay, jumping to the long setups. Honestly, found a ton of long setups going into tomorrow, which usually excites me. At this point of the rally, it kind of concerns me because I feel very similar to how I felt at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, where we had a massive run in stocks like RGTI, right? That had massive moves from 78 cents to 19, whatever. And then they fell back down to earth. And then as they fell back down to earth, a lot of the liquid leaders pulled back and got tight for potential breakouts. And at that point, we were already extended in the move. And after we had like more of these speculative names make their massive moves and then come back down to earth, and everything got tight, everyone was bullish because, hey, finally things are getting tight again. Everyone's making money on these speculative names. Let's just continue to pour into the market. And all of those tight setups started breaking to the downside, one after another. And then we got some major distribution there. So I do have 13 setups to go over on the long side. I'm probably going to take a couple of these tomorrow and just keep dancing until the music stops. But I am cautious, or I'm at least aware of how I'm feeling, how I'm seeing the speculative market right now, and all of the setups that I'm seeing on the long side after a really nice 2 to 3 month move. So just keep that in mind. RGTI, I do have a position in this already. Awesome multi-month base after a massive move higher. Really reminds me of SMCI. If we take a look back at that, I think I've cleaned up that chart. No, I didn't. Um, but SMCI's base back in 2023, kind of similar to RGTI's, not exactly the same, but went from 9 to $40 or $30, continued to just flag out, flag out, flag out, and then started putting in lower high, or sorry, higher lows, higher low, and then another pullback after what seemed like the breakout, and then it just exploded higher. So hopefully, obviously, hopefully, because I'm in this name already, hopefully this is the pullback, the last higher low before we get that explosive move. And after today, or sorry, after yesterday's shake of the 10-day moving average, tight price action today, just looking for a break over today's high as a potential ad spot or an entry versus the low of that pullback. SMR, good shakeout of the 10-day moving average and then gapped up and rallied a little bit. Just looking for another higher low test of that 10-day EMA. This is the leader in the nuclear theme to me, along with LEU. So watching that area at 44.50 for a pullback. SEZL, this has been a monster this year, rallied from 25 up to 180, then went through a pretty rough pullback, 4-day pullback, bounced, put in a lower high, lower low, shook out the 50-day moving average, but then held over it after the shakeout. We've got two support gaps here. Typically, the first time you pull into the 50-day after a monster rally is a good risk reward spot. And now that we're tightening up a little bit on that 50-day moving average, just looking for either a pullback and shakeout of the support gap versus the pullback low, or a break over today's high as an entry. And that point, the stop would be the 50-day moving average. Next, we have TIGR, sticking with the China theme that I think is one to focus on. This stock has been a little bit wicky, working up the right side of the base, but you can see volatility continues to contract. And now that we have the theme going for it, we're just riding that 5-day EMA higher on the lows every single day. And this was the first like solid close that we had in the last couple of days, up 3%. Now just looking through 1150 as a breakout point here, and when TIGR goes, it can trend and really make some quick moves. So we'll watch the 1150 area for TIGR. Next, we have IREN. This goes back to the crypto stocks that I think Bitcoin is doing nothing wrong. I think it's consolidating really well after the initial breakout. And IREN, outside of this ugly like squat reversal, has not done anything wrong. We had a shakeout to the 10-day, bounced and closed well, and then an inside candle today. So now we have just a kind of a squat reset, shakeout reset, whatever you want to call it. Breakthrough 19 is buyable. I would probably use the 5-day EMA because it's a name that's a little wedged up here and we do have this malfunction bar. I want it to work right away for me. So through 19, stop at the 5-day and just try to play for the momentum left in the market. CRCL, I'm not as excited about this. I think it actually could be a short as well if we break through to the downside. But this is going to be like a market tell for me. This has been one of those stocks that has incredible momentum and shows that it can make these massive moves when the market's right. Right now, sitting on a do or die spot at the 20-day EMA at the support gap area here. Tight candle, just looking for a break through today's high as an entry versus the low of the pullback. And if we actually like say we gap down and we take out the pullback lows, I think this is probably a pretty good short to run it. I mean, it's made a big move up. We've potentially put in a lower high reversal here on volume. We're at a do or die spot. Pick the direction that you feel comfortable trading it, and then just place your stop. Robinhood kind of alluded to this earlier, but this is my main focus going into tomorrow. I think it's the liquid leader in the market. We have not had a day this tight, the entire move up. Very low volume on the inside candle today. A couple different ways to play it. If we have some morning weakness in the market, a shakeout of the support gap right at 98.50, that's buyable versus the 20-day moving average. A break through today's high is buyable versus the low of yesterday. I just think that this is worth the risk, even up here. These monster stocks can go a lot further than you think, and we're in a market environment that gives you that opportunity to make those moves. Reddit, kind of similar with IREN, just a kind of squat retest. We've tested the 20-day EMA and the support gap multiple times and held that. Today we tried to rally through this pivot and squatted a little bit, but you see a lot of squats across the market that the next day you get a gap up, take out that same pivot, and then it just rips higher. So I'll be looking for that pivot at 149.50 area as a potential entry, especially if we can get a gap up tomorrow. Snowflake pulling into the under the 20-day moving average, a little lower high here, potentially putting in a higher low, sitting on a support gap right now. So just taking a entry through today's high, through the 20-day EMA versus the low today is the trade there. Coinbase probably was the buy point today on the shakeout of the support gap under the 10-day. If we pull back into that area tomorrow in the morning, that's the spot that I would be watching. Webull, this is one of the more speculative names, but I mean, we had two speculative names on the watch list yesterday, CYCC. That was up 30%. And then UAVS was the other speculative name we had. And that was up 37% today because we're in a speculative market. So some of these junk stocks will make insane moves. Not even saying Webull is a junk company, but it's a speculative stock right now. And we're in a speculative market. And it's acting really well. And it gapped down on Monday because it had a secondary offering. And that secondary was completely soaked up the next day. And now we're following through to the upside today. Just looking for more acceleration through today's high, through 18 as a potential entry. Stop would be either the low of the day if we have like some morning weakness and then take it out, or the 5-day moving average. CRWV, exactly the same as CRCL. I think this could be a good long. I think it could be a good short. It's at a do or die spot, and that's how I like to play some of these stocks. At do or die spots, you could size up and be wrong very, very small and be wrong very quickly. So you get your money back out of the market, put it into the next opportunity. So 3 tight trading days after this distribution bar through the 50-day moving average. We're sitting on 2 support gaps. We're under the 50-day moving average. Just looking for a breakthrough today's high as a potential entry, or even like a quick shakeout of the support gap. I would rather play it on a gap up at this point, like a gap up and then push through on strength, because we're getting towards the end of this momentum move in the market. And if things start to crack and run to the downside, that might not just be a shakeout, that might be a sign that momentum is ending. The stock's already made a big move, already pulled back quite a bit and showed some relative weakness for multiple weeks now. So I want to take this on strength and try to just get my stop to break even as quickly as possible versus playing this on a support gap test, I think is a little bit more risky on the long side. Then finally, Meta. We've talked about this the last couple daily recaps. Big cup, working on a nice handle. We got 2 support gaps here under the key moving averages. I love when you have support gaps under the 20-day because if you trade under the 20-day, people forget about you. And those are really good risk reward spots. So quick shake of 705 is an entry. Breakthrough the previous high, 715 is an entry versus yesterday's low either way. And then on the short side, we got 7 setups. DXYZ, just going to continue to pound this short. So weak. One of the weaker speculative names that never got back to its highs from December. Lower high, gap down, gap down, gap down. Just not competing with AST or RKLB. And now we have really tight trading under the 5 day moving average, under this resistance gap. Just looking for follow through to add to the short at 32, today's low. NEG, I am short this already on the uppercut and fail of the resistance gap. I'm just being patient with it. I think the move is probably done, but given the market environment that we're in, it can still have another leg higher. So I'll have my stop just at my entry on the rest of my position. But if we get a quick like morning rally and then loss of that resistance gap low, that would be a spot that I would add to. Or if we get a gap down, loss of today's low, loss of the 10-day EMA, then I'm sizing that short up and really trying to play this for a break of structure. LAES, weaker name overall, never got back up to its December's high. Has had like 2 weeks of relative weakness while the market and speculative names have been ripping. Not a good sign for this name. Just looking for a quick rally into the 50-day. So being patient on this, trying to short it on strength into the 50-day, into the 20-day, right at that 360 area. And then the stop would be 380. BMNR, this was a great short on July 9th. And since then, it has just been distributed consistently. The market's been ripping higher, and this has been going nowhere. Every candle opened higher than the close, meaning people are selling, people are selling, people are selling all the way through here. And you could argue that people are selling and it's not continuing down. I think that's just because of how strong the speculative market has been. um, this is at a do or die spot too. So a couple different stocks, CRWV, CRCL. This is the same one. I wouldn't be surprised if this gapped up and had a 30% day or a 40% day. That's the market we're in. But if we start to see evidence that momentum is drying up, a breakthrough today's low, and this 38 can quickly collapse. So we'll be watching for a weakness through today's low. And honestly, I might trade it long through today's high if we get that momentum burst in the market. DFDV, this was on the short watch list yesterday, down 9.2%. It was really like basically impossible to size into this at the open because we gapped down right at the 50-day and immediately sold off. I didn't get any shares on the short. So now I'm just watching for a retest of that 50-day moving average in gap zone. VVPR, this is a name that I've had some good trades on the short side. Puts in a lower high here, follows through to the downside. 680 was like the true like quality short spot. But we're just getting more and more evidence that this move is probably done in this name. We had a good shake of the 50-day moving average, support gap, big rally yesterday to finish up 6%. And then we gapped down and followed through to the downside. We opened on the high, closed on the low, back through the 5 and 10-day moving averages. This is another one where I'll wait for a little rally into that gap zone to try to short versus $7. And then HYPD today was also probably the better short day. We rallied, put in a lower high, took out the 5 and the 10-day moving average, continued lower, put in a nice tight day on the 20-day, and then just immediately flushed down 19% today. This is another one I'll be watching for a intraday rally into that 20-day EMA as a lower high, and then short versus either today's high or the 10-day moving average. So that's going to be the daily recap and watch list video for Wednesday, July 23rd. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I do these daily recaps Monday through Thursday, and then a longer weekly review and weekly prep for the next week on Sunday. Have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.